I'd like to call this workshop to order, workshop of the Oceanside City Council, September 29, 2021. And we have one single item on this on the agenda. That is item number 1. Excuse me.
We need
call to order. Yes.
Mayor
call to order. Pledge.
Mayor Sanchez.
Present.
Deputy Mayor Keim. Here. Councilmember Jensen. Here. Councilmember Rodriguez. Here. Councilmember Weiss. Here.
Feels like a lot of things happened this past week, I guess. Thank you. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, we do have one item for this workshop, and that is item number 1, direction to staff to explore implementation of community choice energy, that's CCE or CCA, by establishing a working group of interested cities, Vista, Escondido, and San Marcos in North San Diego County. We're going to begin with the report by Ms. Carrie Dale, Director of the Water Utilities Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. We'll be talking about Community Choice Energy, which is a joint effort between Water Utilities as well as the Development Services Department. You know me, I'm Carrie Dale. To my right, also speaking today will be Justin Gamble. He's the Environmental Officer within the Water Utilities Department. Russ Cunningham, to my left, is a Principal Planner. And available for questions is Gary Saliba. Behind me, he's with EES Consulting. He had also performed the original feasibility study in 2019. As we move forward, we will be talking about the following items here, and so going back and forth a little bit between presenters. The intent is to run through the presentation fairly quickly and then leave time for questions and comments at the end. Justin?
Thank you. Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Council members. My name is Justin Gamble, Environmental Officer with the Water Utilities Department, and I'll be providing you with an overview of Community Choice Energy. Community Choice Energy, also known as Community Choice Aggregation, is an alternative model of buying and generating clean, renewable energy compared to traditional investor-owned utilities like SDG&E. CCE allows local communities to pool their buying power and form nonprofit public agencies that buy electricity on behalf of their customers. Within a CCE service area, member agencies get to decide where to buy power from, decisions that are not driven by investor profit, but instead by local priorities like customer rate setting, investing in local energy initiatives, and pursuing renewable energy targets. This allows a cost-competitive means of buying energy that is higher in renewable content like wind and solar, while staying cost competitive with the incumbent utility. A key element of CCE is customer choice. When a city forms or is enrolled in a CCE, customers are notified in advance and are enrolled by default. Any customer has the right to opt out of CCE service and return to SDG&E. CCEs function as not-for-profit public entities and are most often made up of multiple municipalities and/or counties. Most CCEs with more than one member are established as a Joint Powers Authority, or JPA. Alternatively, some cities have established CCEs as enterprise operations, where the CCE functions as a special department within the city. In a CCE, there is the decision of where to buy electricity from is in the hands of the communities that are served, while the incumbent investor-owned utility, in our case SDG&E, continues to deliver the power and maintain the grid and bill customers. CCEs can procure a cleaner mix of electricity by purchasing renewable energy contracts at cost-competitive rates to the incumbent utility. In addition to having local control and cleaner energy delivered to customers, communities within more mature CCEs can use the revenues to reinvest locally in rate reduction programs, meeting climate planning goals, and constructing local renewable generation. Currently, there are 24 operational CCEs in the state. These organizations have been largely successful, serving over 1 million customers. I'll now turn it over to Russ Cunningham to discuss Climate Action Plan and the state's greenhouse gas emission reduction target.
Justin, thank you. Mayor Sanchez, council members, good afternoon. In May 2019, this body adopted the city's first climate action plan as part of the first phase of the city's comprehensive general plan update. The Climate Action Plan, or CAP, commits the city to achieving roughly a 20% reduction in local greenhouse gas emissions by 2030, consistent with California's goal of reducing statewide GHG emissions to no more than 40% of 1990 levels by the end of this decade. It's worth noting that California has thus far been quite successful in bending the emissions curve and putting the state on track to meet the 2030 target. Nevertheless, as noted in the most recent iteration of the state's climate mitigation scoping plan, achieving the 2030 target will require action at the local level. To support California's emissions reduction efforts, cities like ours must leverage their land use authority, their investments in capital improvements, and their public platforms to set a positive example and provide pathways for residents, businesses, and the development community to minimize their respective carbon footprints. To this end, cities across the state and throughout the country have turned to the procurement of renewable, emissions-free electricity as a key emissions reduction strategy. For most cities in the San Diego region, this strategy is the centerpiece of their climate action plans. At present, CCAs are the principal means of achieving the renewable, emissions-free energy procurement goals commonly found in climate action plans. While there may be other feasible means of achieving these procurement goals, CCA or CCE appears to be the best way to increase the percentage of renewable emissions-free power while maintaining rate structures equivalent to or lower than those offered by SDG&E. CCAs provide discretion and with residual revenue resources to pursue local emissions reduction measures, which can support energy independence and security at the local level. These include energy efficiency retrofitting, which reduces overall electricity demand, renewable energy facilities, increasing so-called behind-the-meter energy generation, primarily through rooftop solar, but also through small-scale district power facilities, microgrids, and energy storage facilities that utilize power generated locally to serve local demand and provide backup power should we experience the kind of grid disruption we've seen in recent years, due primarily to wildfire and excessive power demand driven by extreme heat events. Also, EV incentives, electric vehicle incentives, including expansion of EV charging infrastructure. The city's CAP commits Oceanside to sourcing at least 75% renewable emissions-free electricity by 2030. Nearly all localities in the region have made similar commitments, and Justin will share with you the procurement goals of the other Highway 78 corridor cities as established in their climate action plans. While not particularly aggressive, the renewable energy procurement measure in our CAP accounts for nearly 50% of total emissions reduction achieved through the host of measures established in our climate action plan. Achieving state-aligned emissions reduction without a procurement measure will likely require additional mandates on new development, the business community, and households. And I'd be happy to talk about how the CAP would be different, how it would read differently if we were to not pursue the goal that we've already established. And I'll close with this important point. The city has a qualified climate action plan. That is a CAP supported by an environmental document that demonstrates that the city can achieve emissions reduction consistent with state targets. A qualified cap allows for the streamlining of the environmental review process for new development through what most cities call a cap consistency checklist. Compliance with this checklist waives the requirement to conduct project-specific emissions impact assessment, which can be costly, it can be time-consuming, and it can result in the need to implement additional emissions reduction measures in order to comply with the city's thresholds of significance for GHG emissions impacts. So the ongoing viability of the city's cap and its checklist and the legal defensibility of that checklist are predicated on implementing the cap, which includes meeting our commitment to source at least 75% renewable emissions-free electricity by 2030. And with that, I'll hand the podium back to Carrie.
Okay, I'll be briefly talking about what we've been doing for the past couple of years since our 2018 workshop. This slide shows a timeline of both the city as well as countywide efforts pertaining to CCE that have occurred since 2018. Those include the original 2019 feasibility study, which examined two scenarios. One was an enterprise CCE or a sole oceanside CCE, or a JPA with Carlsbad, Encinitas, and Del Mar, who were our feasibility study partners. In both scenarios, the oceanside startup costs were estimated at a little under $9 million, regardless of the scenario, with approximately a 2% customer savings over SDG&E rates. That study culminated in a workshop in May of 2019, in which Council provided direction to staff to explore partnerships with other San Diego County cities, to include Vista as well as Escondido. Since that time and going into 2020, city staff has been exploring partnerships as well as monitoring the status of various efforts occurring throughout the county, which have included at sometimes phone calls to the various agencies here. We've had lots of Zoom calls, of course, during COVID, and fairly robust calls with the County of San Diego of late. We've also been monitoring actions with the CPUC, and in particular monitoring the exit fee, as that development does change the financial outlook of some of the scenarios. Moving into this year, we do know that there are two CCEs that have formed in San Diego County. The San Diego Community Power is one, and the second one is Clean Energy Alliance. And our partners in the original feasibility study have each joined one of these two CCEs. Earlier this year, we did initiate an effort with EES Consulting to update the original financial forecast for the Oceanside only CCE option. That particular financial analysis indicated that savings would be lower from the original study at approximately 1%, and startup costs would be higher from the $9 million. In addition, this summer, the 78 corridor cities of San Marcos, Escondido, and Vista finished up their feasibility studies, and staff has continued to explore partnerships, options analysis, and sharing of information. And we've been sharing updates on the status of staff's effort through Council weekly updates, through the citywide department goal reports, as well as the city manager project status reports. And with that, I'll turn it over to Justin.
Thank you, Carrie. I'll now provide some details on the 4 community choice energy scenarios for the city that staff have studied. Throughout 2021, staff have evaluated the risks and benefits of 4 CCE participation scenarios for Oceanside. These scenarios are not completely exhaustive of CCE options. However, they were studied as the most readily accessible based on current conditions in the region and with the sufficient information available to staff. 4 scenarios were evaluated. Scenario 1 was to explore and possibly implement a new CCE with the Highway 78 corridor cities of San Marcos, Vista, and Escondido. Scenario 2 would be to establish an enterprise CCE only for the city of Oceanside. Scenario 3 would be to join one of 2 existing CCEs that Carrie previously mentioned, San Diego Community Power or Clean Energy Alliance. Or scenario 4, do not pursue community choice energy. Under scenario 1, the city could explore a new 4-member CCE with the Highway 78 corridor cities of Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido. This scenario doesn't include the possibility of forming a new community choice energy program. Staff have monitored CCE discussions and development with each of these cities in the last year. This group completed a feasibility study in summer of 2021, which indicated that a JPA is financially feasible for these 3 cities. Establishing a new JPA provides multiple benefits to its members, including tailoring the governance structure for decision-making, minimizing financial and legal risk to each member, and ensuring an equitable process for the distribution and use of future discretionary revenues. Under this scenario, it's expected the earliest that a new CCE could be established and launched is 2024, but possibly later. There are upfront costs to consider in launching a new CCE, aside from a $20 million estimated line of credit issued to the JPA that each member city would need to take part of. The Highway 78 corridor cities have a comparatively similar electric demand and customer base as Oceanside. The figure on the right shows a comparison of Oceanside's customer accounts and annual electric load with the Highway 78 corridor cities. Each agency has also adopted a climate action plan that established goals to procure a majority of their electric power from renewable sources by 2030. The table on the lower right shows those goals for each city. It's expected that Oceanside and the Highway 78 cities would benefit from a CCE to increase the share of renewable energy delivered to their customers that exceed the state's renewable energy requirements that are held to the load-serving entities in the state. The timing of launching a new CCE may affect the financial risks due to the creditor market conditions and also the power charge indifference adjustment, which Carrie previously mentioned, also known as an exit fee. It is estimated that $1.5 million in shared pre-launch costs would be required for a new 4-city community choice energy program. Each member city would be responsible for providing approximately $375,000 to cover the hiring of the energy market consultants, the necessary staff, filing the required cash deposits with SDG&E, and bonds to be posted with the California Public Utilities Commission. Staffing a new CCE with industry experts is critical, as the city does not have the technical expertise and bandwidth to establish a new CCE. The new JPA would need to apply for a startup line of credit of $20 million to purchase power contracts and make the required regulatory deposits in advance of serving customers. In this scenario, it is expected that customers under a new CCE would benefit from an average 2% electric bill savings over SDG&E. To summarize the benefits of scenario 1, a new CCE would allow members to tailor the governance structure and set local priorities for revenues, limit member liability through a JPA, and reduce the average customer electric bill over SDG&E service. In contrast, there are financial risks, including the potential difficulty of securing a line of credit for the JPA, the undetermined effect of the exit fee when the CCE does launch, and the effect of energy market volatility on the CCE's ability to procure competitive power purchase agreements. Staff estimate upfront costs to the city are $375,000 as part of a shared $1.5 million total to establish the CCE, with a future $20 million line of credit issued to the JPA prior to launch. Scenario 2 involves establishing an enterprise CCE servicing only the city of Oceanside. This scenario was previously examined in the city's 2019 feasibility study and re-examined earlier this year as a financial forecast update to the previous study. Conditions have changed unfavorably to implement an enterprise CCE in Oceanside. The city's consultant estimates that startup and working capital costs have increased by $1.3 million since the 2019 study. Approximately $1 million of this would cover the CCE's internal staffing and consulting in advance of launch, with a $10 million line of credit issued to the city for the power purchases and collateral. The city would need to hire staff and retain a competent consultant team after launch to administer the CCE, with costs greater than $350,000 expected in the first year alone. There are significant financial, operational, and legal risks associated with this option. Notably, the city retains all financial and legal risk without the liability shield that's provided by a JPA. So to summarize scenario 2, the enterprise scenario, if chosen, would be expected to yield just over a 1% average customer electric bill savings over SDG&E. While this option provides full control to the city also assumes the liabilities and debts of the CCE. Furthermore, there are no economies of scale that can be realized in the costs of startup administration and power purchasing to meet the city's electric demand. The city would also need to cover internal staffing costs, as positions do not currently exist to administer this type of program. The estimated cost to launch in this scenario is a total of $11.1 million, $10 million of which would be financed directly to the city. Scenario 3 includes the city joining one of 2 existing CCEs in our region, San Diego Community Power or Clean Energy Alliance. In 2021, staff have received information from each of these CCEs on their governance structure and current financial performance to study the benefits and risks of membership. Both organizations function as JPAs, with decisions made by a board of directors composed of 1 council member and 1 alternate from each member agency. The JPA and bylaws of each dictate the voting structure and CCE priorities. Here's a comparison of the operational characteristics of Clean Energy Alliance and San Diego Community Power. Both launched in 2021 and are actively serving electric load to their customers. Clean Energy Alliance, or CEA, serves the cities of Carlsbad, Del Mar, and Solana Beach with over 59,000 accounts and electricity rate savings that is slightly below San Diego Gas and Electric. San Diego Community Power is providing electric load to the cities of San Diego, Chula Vista, La Mesa, and Imperial Beach with over 700,000 accounts and a 1% rate savings below SDG&E. San Diego Community Power is actively growing, with the County of San Diego voting recently in August of this year to join as a new member, and with a planned enrollment of additional residential customers next year. Each of these CCEs provides multiple power products to their customers that currently exceed the renewable energy mix provided through SDG&E. Membership in Clean Energy Alliance provides the benefit of limited upfront liability to the city as a joint powers authority. They've already secured the necessary working capital and are offering a base customer product that is 50% renewable electricity with an expectation to increase that amount to 100% renewable by 2035. These amounts exceed both the state renewable portfolio targets and the city's climate action plan of 75% renewable energy procurement by 2030. Governance decisions by the board of directors is made on a 1 vote per agency basis. The JPA agreement allows for the inclusion of new members, flexibility in rate setting, and the equitable distribution of discretionary revenues, should they be realized, based on each member's electric load. San Diego Community Power also provides the benefit of limited liability to its members as a JPA, along with no upfront financing required from the city, if the city chooses to be a member. An analysis of Oceanside's electric load data by San Diego Community Power indicates an overall positive financial outlook for the CCE at large, and San Diego Community Power would cover the necessary contributions to its reserves on behalf of the city, should it become a member. The base product offered to SDCP customers currently is 50% renewable. The San Diego Community Power Board of Directors uses a 2-level voting system, a majority rule system and a weighted voting system that is based on each member agency's electric load. In a weighted vote situation, the city has minimal voice if it were to be a member, as it only represents approximately 8% of the total electric load within San Diego Community Power's service area. The majority of the weighted voting power lies with the city of San Diego and soon the county of San Diego. As a summary of scenario 3, membership in either of these operational CCEs does provide the benefit of liability protection through a JPA, average customer electricity rates that are competitive with SDG&E, and significant progress towards the city renewable energy procurement goals, all without significant startup financing. Each CCE requires an analysis of Oceanside's electric load, as I mentioned earlier, to assess the city's impact should it come in as a new member. These costs are not to exceed $30,000 for San Diego Community Power and $50,000 for Clean Energy Alliance. The risks with this scenario include the weighted vote situation with San Diego Community Power, concerns with the difficulty in amending any existing JPA documents for a more favorable position for the city of Oceanside, as well as an incomplete financial picture on the future performance of both of these CCEs as they are both relatively young. In scenario 4, the city would not join a CCE, and we would remain under San Diego Gas and Electric Service for energy procurement and transmission. This option does avoid the risk of any future regulatory rulemaking that may impact community choice energy programs, and it avoids costs to the city to hire any expert community choice energy staffing, especially in an enterprise or new CCA scenario. However, not implementing community choice energy is expected to hinder the city's progress in achieving its climate action plan renewable goals and does not allow local choice over how Oceanside receives its energy and from where. There are benefits within CCE in the form of discretionary revenues. For example, these revenues can fund projects like solar generation compensation, rate reduction programs, and feed-in tariffs to build local generation projects and encourage job growth within the city. These options would not be available to the city should it not participate in a community choice energy program. It is also a missed opportunity to formulate a favorable joint powers authority agreement should the city form its own CCE with the North County cities. So in summary, under this scenario, there's no immediate financial impact. However, the long-term costs are unknown, as the city would likely require additional effort to achieve its climate action plan renewable energy goals. San Diego Gas and Electric is currently supplying an energy mix that is approximately 40% renewable. While they are required to meet the state renewable targets of 60% renewable by 2030, this level is still below the city's established goal of 75% renewable by the same date. As Russ previously mentioned, future efforts may be needed, such as redevelopment standards and mandates to help meet these goals. I'll now turn it back over to Carrie for fiscal expectations and the staff recommendation.
So real quick, I'm wrapping it up here. So although there are many considerations associated with looking at the various options presented today, we wanted to emphasize some of the cost factors and expectations applicable to most of the options. These future costs depend on which option is pursued, if any, fluctuations in the renewable energy costs, the exit fee, what that is when we would go to launch, as well as the market conditions for the working capital line of credit. Here's a comparison of those costs for the various options that Justin presented. I'm not going to go into these in detail. They are also in the staff report provided to you. Staff's recommendation today is to receive direction from you, so please direct staff to explore implementation of community choice energy by establishing a working group of interested cities, and in particular Vista Escondido and San Marcos in North San Diego County. We are available for questions as well as discussion.
Excuse me, how many speakers do we have?
We have 8 speakers on this item.
Okay, thank you. Before the speakers begin, I did want to add some information. This topic came up during the monthly mayor's committee meetings, and there was an interest by other cities voiced in joining with the CEA, which would then be a hybrid of the 78 corridor cities joining an existing one. There was a follow-up meeting where there was representation from Escondido, the cities of Escondido and San Marcos, and there was an interest voiced in doing that hybrid. Unfortunately, we had the League of California Cities was meeting, and we didn't have more representation, but that is happening as we speak. The cities are talking amongst each other. So that is, the hybrid would be 1, which is 1 and 3. So 1 is to create a new CCE with the 78 corridor cities, which is what the recommendation is. But then 3, which is join an existing, so that would be CEA. And the biggest reason that was voiced was basically this weighted vote that was somehow, I don't know if you remember, the first recommendation was from staff to join the San Diego group, but then after that, the county joined it, and then there was this added requirement of having 2 ways to vote that included the weighted vote. So after that, staff took that recommendation away, and this is their new recommendation. So can we start with the comments from the public?
Yes. Our first public comment is from Ellen Bartlett, to be followed by Barbara Collins, to be followed by Leonard Grossberg.
Oh, and by the way, we did receive a letter from the city of Carlsbad from Mayor Matt Hall. Hopefully everyone received that too. Thank you.
Mrs. Bartlett?
Good afternoon, I should say, Mayor and council members. I'm a very long-time Oceanside resident and a retired science teacher from Oceanside High School. I, along with other community members, have been requesting that our city establish a community choice energy so that residents and our businesses could reap the benefits of lower energy prices, greener energy, and generate revenue for our city, which is badly needed. Why should the profits be going to SDG&E shareholders when our city so badly needs them? I first contacted the council about CCE back in June of 2017. Let me say that again. I first contacted the council on June of 2017 regarding CCE. At that time, our sister cities of Carlsbad, Encinitas, Del Mar, and Solana Beach were exploring CCEs along with us. Well, over 4 years later, those cities, along with the city of San Diego, Chula Vista, and the county of San Diego, have CCEs up and running. Well, Oceanside, the largest city in North County, is still dragging its feet. And rather than joining up and running CCE would be the most cost-effective, they seem to be kicking down the can down the road to explore a CCE with the 78 corridor cities. I understand there are some advantages to that, but at this point, this is still an unknown entity. And this is going to waste, I believe, at least 2 years, but probably more of that we're going to be without the revenue and benefits from a CCE. It is a fact that our city will be unable to meet its cap commitment without establishing a CCE. And I don't understand why our city has chosen to wait so long. We could be entering with a CCE next year, but I don't understand. With the pace this is going on, it seems like it's going to be taking forever. And I do have a question regarding the slideshow before I finish up here. It was listing the other CCEs that are up and running as giving 1% or less as far as the profits, the savings versus SDG&E. I don't understand how it came up with somehow giving 2% for the program that they want to wait for the Tri-Cities. They somehow say that one's going to give have a 2% savings, and it doesn't exist yet, but the other ones only have a 1%, which are existing, and those are known quantities. Thank you very much for having me speak, and thank you.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Barbara Collins, to be followed by Leonard Grossberg, to be followed by Matthew Vasilakis. And Ms. Collins, whenever you're ready. And if you can, please unmute yourself.
Thanks. There, just did it. Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Sanchez and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'm representing the Oceanside team of the Sierra Club. The Sierra Club urges the council to say yes to a CCE, pass a resolution, and join an existing CCE now so that we can launch by 2023. Over 2 years ago, the council voted unanimously to join or form a CCE. And at the same time, the council said that Oceanside needed to explore a partnership with the 78 corridor cities. We seem to be spinning our wheels and not getting anywhere because that is essentially the same proposal being discussed today. We've had 2 feasibility studies that found that CCE would be a great deal for Oceanside. We'd get more renewables for less cost. Plus, we would get local control. We would get local investment and good paying local jobs. The idea that we should study a joint CCE with the other 78 cities, again, sounds like we're spinning our wheels and not getting anywhere. Are we really still at square one 2 years later? The study this year says that joining one of the existing CCEs will save the city time, money, and staff resources. There are 2 CCEs operating in our area that Oceanside can join. Yes, there are pros and cons to each one, but we know that joining either one would benefit Oceanside. So pick the best option and please move forward. Let's get out of 2019 and back into 2021. Most Californians know that we are in the midst of a climate crisis. We have to do everything we can to reduce GHGs. Now, you have a decision, a win-win offer in front of you. More renewables, less cost. Take that offer. Take the win-win. Pass a resolution. Join one of the existing CCEs. Sure, the working group with the 78 corridor cities sounds like a great idea, but we don't need to wait for their approval to move forward for Oceanside. Let's get the benefits of the CCE for our residents and our businesses. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Leonard Grossberg, to be followed by Matthew Vasilakis. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that incorrectly. To be followed by John Bodworth. And Mr. Grossberg, you're on.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, City Council. My name is Leonard Grossberg. I'm a longtime resident, City of Oceanside. I'm the retired Director of Environmental Health. I would like to speak in favor of the community choice energy, which is cleaner energy, better rates, local jobs, local control. As you know, in 2018, Oceanside paid for the feasibility study that found that the residents and businesses will pay less if Oceanside joins the CCE, and more of the energy will come from renewable operation and generation. In the midst of a climate crisis, we must reduce greenhouse gases at every opportunity. As CCE will do that and cost less than SDG&E. Less cost, more renewables. What's not to like in that scenario? Seeing the CCEs in the wave of the future in their business territory, SDG&E has announced that in 2 years ago, that its business plan is now to transition out of energy buying side of the utility businesses. Yet in 2019, the City Council chose not to proceed with the win-win scenario and decided against joining a CCE until they could study it more. Recently, the original feasibility study was updated. The update showed the same benefits, less cost, more renewables, and it couldn't be much easier. We just need to join one of the several CCEs in San Diego. I agree with the City of Oceanside staff recommending that Oceanside should move forward and join the CEA. Oceanside has paid for several studies that says the same thing. Residents and businesses will pay less if Oceanside joins the CCE, and more of the energy will come from renewable generation. The City Council has had 2 years to review this win-win scenario for residents and businesses. It's time to lead and make a decision to join a CCE and do it by 10/31/21. That's the end of October of this year. The state only reviews new applications during the calendar year following receipt of an application. So a decision is needed by October 31 of this year to ensure our application is accepted and reviewed by the state in 2022. Delaying a decision in spite of the favorable studies will keep residents and businesses from enjoying the benefits of the CCE for Oceanside until 2024 at the earliest. I urge you to please vote to join the CEA currently available to us. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Matthew Vasilakis. I apologize for mispronouncing that. To be followed by John Bodworth, to be followed by Suzanne Hume. And Matt,
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. This is Matthew Vasilakis with Climate Action Campaign. We applaud the City of Oceanside for continuing to look for innovative, cost-effective, and business-friendly solutions to provide cleaner, more cost-competitive electricity for Oceanside families and small businesses. These solutions can also help the City of Oceanside meet their legally binding climate action plan goals. CCE programs are time-tested and proven agencies that are accelerating our transition to a more sustainable and equitable clean energy future. After 4 years of study, countless community hearings, and public testimony, and the launch of 2 successful CCE programs in San Diego County, we hope Oceanside will catch up to its peers and move forward with CCE. Climate Action Campaign recommends Oceanside join an existing program to finally offer its families and businesses energy democracy. We do not support the creation of a new standalone or JPA program, an action that would create unnecessary bureaucracy, redundancies, and increase risks to 78 corridor cities. We need unity to address the climate crisis and clean energy transition, not division. Thank you, and we look forward to partnering with you on this important program.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from John Bodworth, to be followed by Suzanne Hume, to be followed by Joe Gabaldon. And Mr. Bodworth, you're on.
Thank you so much. Mayor Sanchez and the City Council, my name is John Bodworth with cleanenergyforkids.org. I first want to thank staff for their amazing work on the report. Their analysis is greatly appreciated. I urge the City Council to move forward with Scenario 3, joining an existing CCE. As California only reviews new CCE applications during the calendar year they receive it, if we apply before the end of the year, it will be reviewed in 2022, and Oceanside can start using CCE in the spring of 2023. If we delay, it will be 2024 at the earliest. The city has had 2 years to make this decision, and the time is now, so Oceanside can get the benefits of CCE. It is very important Oceanside submits their application before the end of 2021. We see the impacts of climate change all around us. Over 2 million acres of California has already burned this year. We must do all we can to move away from fossil fuels. The burning of fossil fuels for electricity is 25% of U.S. greenhouse emissions. By going CCE with 100% renewable energy, the city can help reduce greenhouse emissions. The burning of fossil fuels is also the main cause of air pollution right here in San Diego. We get an F in ozone and a D in particulate pollution from the American Lung Association State of the Air report. There is also a health cost to air pollution. Air pollution is linked to asthma, COPD, dementia, Alzheimer's, and Parkinson's. Fossil fuels are the major cause of air pollution. Oceanside is a beach city, and people come here for fresh air, so let's do everything we can to protect our air and our health. Let's stop using fossil fuels. CCE with 100% renewable energy would also be an easy way to meet the goals of the city's climate action plan and provide low-cost renewable energy for Oceanside homes and businesses, with money going to local reinvestment instead of shareholders. Please apply for CCE before the end of the year with 100% renewable energy. I would also ask the city to stop any investments in fossil fuel companies and send a letter to CalPERS asking them to divest from fossil fuels, as has the city of Encinitas. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next public comment is from Suzanne Hume, to be followed by Joe Gabaldon, to be followed by Linda Slater. And Suzanne, you are on.
Hi, everyone. Dear Mayor Sanchez and City Council and everyone here, hello. My name is Suzanne Hume, and I'm the Educational Director and founder of Clean Earth for Kids. And I echo the comments made by Barbara Collins, Matthew from Climate Action Campaign, and others. Thank you so much. For clean air and clean water, and for the health of our kids and for their future, we must reduce the burning of fossil fuels. Fossil fuels emit toxic pollution and greenhouse gases. As John said, San Diego County has an F in ozone, which is smog and sunlight, and a D in particulate matter. We are in a climate crisis. A few weeks ago, our youth, Hannah, counted 91 wildfires burning in the western U.S. Our youth and future generations have this really heavy burden to carry, and we must do everything that we can to get on board with climate action. We ask Oceanside to change from 75% renewable energy to 100% renewable energy. The 75% renewable energy is too low. We ask you to move forward with CCE. Join an existing CCE with the application submitted before the end of 2021. We must protect our kids and our future. To deny a CCE for Oceanside is to deny our kids, to deny climate action, solar generation, and rate reduction. and we don't want that. We want to encourage job growth in Oceanside and clean air and reduce fossil fuel emissions. SDG&E is only 40% renewable. That is way too low. We must take immediate action now to reduce greenhouse gases and the burning of fossil fuels. The burning of fossil fuels caused over 8.7 million deaths globally in 2018, and fossil fuel pollution is responsible for 1 in 10 deaths in the US and 1 in 5 deaths worldwide. It is linked to dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, lung, and heart and brain issues. There are multiple studies about this that you can see on our website, Clean Earth for Kids and others. The City Council has had 2 years to make this decision, and it's the right choice right now to start and join an existing CCE. That's the right way to go. Also, additionally, please follow in the footsteps of Encinitas and sign a resolution, write a resolution, direct staff to the resolution, to divest from fossil fuels. CalPERS is invested in coal, and it is just not a good thing at all, and fossil fuels. So let's divest from fossil fuels and join a CCE for our kids and their future. Let's do everything for clean air, clean water, and a better future for Oceanside. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our next public comment is Joe Gabaldon, calling in on phone number with the last 4 digits, 0771. And Mr. Gabaldon, you're on.
Yes. Good afternoon, Mayor Sanchez, members of the City Council and staff. My name is Joe Gabaldon, Public Affairs Manager for SDG&E. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak on this important issue for the city. I'd like to begin by stating SDG&E appreciates a long-standing collaboration we have with the city, and we look forward to continuing this partnership into the future. SDG&E respects our customers' right to choose their energy provider, and we will coordinate and cooperate with any governance structure that suits your needs the best. Whichever path the city chooses, SDG&E will continue to operate a safe and reliable grid to deliver the energy mix you can procure, and will continue to handle customer billing and core programs to support our most vulnerable shared customers. Given the recent experience with local CCAs and the complexities of our industry, this path will require both of us to work closer than ever, and SDG&E looks forward to that integrated partnership. SDG&E has more than 140 years of experience in energy delivery. While we don't make money from energy procurement, as it is a pass-through to customers with no markup, we recognize the need to share some of the experience and knowledge that we've gained in this endeavor. That's why we're actively working with various jurisdictions around the region to share the information, tools in energy procurement and support the success of our customer choice-driven programs. To conclude, SDG&E is committed to maintaining a strong relationship with the city, regardless of the choice you make with respect to energy procurement. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. And our next public comment is in person from Linda Slater, to be followed by Jason Haber.
Good afternoon, Mayor Sanchez and council members. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Linda Slater, and I'm a 15-and-a-half-year resident of Oceana. And I'm here to encourage you very strongly in the face of our climate crisis and the issues that we've been facing, for example, the fires in Northern California. And I'm holding my breath that we don't have that happen down here, because we have had it before. And actually, where I live, Oceana, many people had to evacuate. So I don't want that to ever happen again. And to do that, we have to address the factors that create the climate crisis. And it seems to be that community choice energy will be a significant factor in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So hopefully scenario 4 is off the table. We need to move forward with CCE. However, when you're looking at the other 3 scenarios, I hope you will consider time. I think we do have a crisis. and we need to institute something as quickly as possible. It seems to me the 78 corridor idea has been dragging along, and unless it can happen quicker than past experience shows, then I think we should go forward with the joining existing. And I like what it says with the San Diego project SDCP, and that is that we'll be able to reach our climate action plan by 2030. That, I think, is extremely important, and I hope you will consider that when you're making your decision. Thank you.
Our next public comment is from Jason Haber.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Sanchez, City Council members. My name is Jason Haber. I'm the Intergovernmental Affairs Director for the City of Carlsbad, and I'm here representing Clean Energy Alliance as a staff from one of the member agencies. I just wanted to come and echo some of the comments that I think all of you received in a letter from our Mayor, Matt Hall, today, encouraging and inviting you all to consider membership and joining with the Clean Energy Alliance. I want to also speak a little bit to the suggestion that Mayor Sanchez made in that you have an opportunity to pursue kind of a hybrid opportunity, both engaging the 78 corridor cities and enrolling with Clean Energy Alliance through option 3B in your staff report. One thing that the Mayor Hall emphasized is that a decision to join Clean Energy Alliance really allows you to build on some of the partnership work that you undertook with the City of Carlsbad, our partner Del Mar, and City of Encinitas a few years ago in preparing a feasibility study for CCE through EES, and also leverage a lot of the input that was provided by Oceanside in the process of developing the joint powers agreement that formed the Clean Energy Alliance. So in that formation document, a lot of input was provided by the City of Oceanside through your staff in some of those conversations as we were in that formation stage. I just want to emphasize a couple points to clarify. Again, the City of Oceanside does have an opportunity to join CEA now by the end of this year, which would create the opportunity, if you so choose, to launch CCE in Oceanside by 2023. You also have the option, if you want, to join CEA now and delay your launch until 2024. That would give you a seat at the table and an opportunity to get involved in some key policy decisions, staffing decisions, and programmatic decisions that'll be coming up over the next year at CEA. Some of the benefits in terms of CEA's perspective for adding a city like Oceanside, from the start of that JPA, the intention was to add new partner cities. And we recognize that additional scale improves economic performance of the agency in terms of spreading some of the overhead costs among additional meters. And so want to invite you to consider that and let you know that that's very much the intent of CEA, is to grow and engaging with Oceanside and the rest of the 78 corridor cities as well to continue that. So again, I hope you'll consider our letter from Mayor Hall, and I'm available if you have any questions. Thank you.
There was a question, Jason. I had understood that if the cities in general joined by December 30th, and that is to say a resolution, not actually everything by December, that would be by October of next year, right? That if you pass resolutions, that 500,000 load analysis would be split among the cities that would be joining. Is that correct? The 500,000?
Correct. It was a $50,000 number, I believe. And
excuse me, yeah.
Right. If we had multiple cities requesting to be considered for membership by the end of the year, that amount would be spread across the new cities.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the public comment on this item.
Thank you. No other public comments. Let's go back to the council. Councilmember Rodriguez.
Thank you. The conversation today is about policy. It's not about the environment. It's not about cost savings, because the savings do not justify the risk. A mistake that many make is to simply say that they don't believe global warming is happening. The overwhelming scientific research confirms that global warming is in fact happening. Client scientists are not sure to what extent, and estimations and opinions vary widely, and because of that uncertainty, it makes zero sense to spend trillions of dollars mitigating a problem that may not be nearly as severe as some woke politicians in DC tend to predict. The climate policies on a federal, state, and local level rely on smoke and mirrors, paper shuffling, and a pie-in-the-sky idea that do very little to actually impact global GHG emissions. Very little effort is focused on the actual work required to reduce dependency on environmentally impacting fuels, as confirmed by the latest Department of Energy data for 2020. Renewables generated merely 13% of United States electricity in 2020. That means 87% was non-renewables. California is a prime example of short-sighted and unrealistic policy decisions in all major areas of society, from public safety, quality of life, housing, schools, business, labor, and the environment. The policies are all geared toward bigger government, massive spending, and massive taxation to fund special interest elites at the expense of hardworking Californians. Most climate activists I've engaged with are not aware of some important details worth pointing out from a global perspective worth considering, because you just don't know what you don't know. Number one, most climate change activists do not understand the impossibility of achieving net zero with current technologies due to limited supplies of green exotic minerals and metals, even if it was worth trying to do so. I encourage them to review, and I'll have all this information available through my counsel aid if you request it. I encourage you to review a paper by Cambridge University Emeritus Professor of Technology, Michael Kelly, which shows that replacing just the United Kingdom's 32 million light-duty vehicles of the 1.42 billion cars in operation worldwide with next-generation EVs would require incredibly vast quantities of materials such as lithium, cobalt, copper, niobium, just to name a few, that do not exist. Number two, wind and solar are the most environmentally destructive energy sources, even ignoring the mass slaughter of local wildlife by erecting bird and bat-killing large-scale turbines. It turns out that wind and solar power are anything but clean and renewable. If you guys want to prepare that 2-minute video. I'm really glad Clean Earth for Kids is watching, because when I read the name of your organization and nonprofit, I really appreciate your concern both on a local and global scale for kids, including the slave labor in the Congo of children mining cobalt. I'm really interested in your opinion on those practices in third world countries so that we can have renewable clean energy here in America. Go ahead and push play.
Life. This relies on the most toxic and industrial processes that we've ever created.
If you want to watch the whole episode, Michael Moore put that together. The film and documentary is called Planet of the Humans. Number 3, during the 30 years that countries have been setting GHG emission reductions targets, global emissions have risen by 60%. More recently, from 2009 to 2019, emissions rose from 29.7 billion tons to 34.2 billion tons, a 15% increase. During the more recent period, the countries of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, OECD, reduced their emissions. So there's partner agencies and countries a part of reducing emissions. The United States is a part of that. However, non-OECD emissions grew by almost 10 times the reduction in emissions achieved by the OECD. So the third world countries we're relying on so we could feel good about ourselves and creating clean energy locally are creating 10 times the amount of GHG emissions. Remember that. The non-OECD region now produces 65% of the world's emissions. The United States, with less than 15% of global emissions, is at best a bystander, with China accounting for over 30%. The woke politician clean energy plan is pro-China because 90% of the solar panels, 80% of the wind machines, and 90% of the rare earth minerals are all in Asia and China, including Singapore, Malaysia, and Vietnam. Number 4, pay attention to the distribution of advantages and disadvantages of climate policy measures. Who gains and who loses from climate policy measures depends on differences of geographic location and income. Measures that increase the cost of energy always have a disproportionate impact on poorer people because they must spend a higher share of their income on necessities. Must be nice to be able to afford a Tesla. Most climate policies are notoriously regressive in their effects, especially when they involve increased taxes. At the other end of the income spectrum, about 80% of the subsidies given for purchasers of electronic cars go to people in the highest income brackets who use them as a second car. Politicians who set net zero or decarbonization targets are not being serious. If we want to take climate change seriously, we have to look at real solutions. And if you want to solve the problem of climate change, we have to view it as an actual problem, not merely as some sort of horrible dystopia that embraces socialism in order to avoid it. So what exactly should we do? I'm not suggesting that nothing can be done about climate change. We should be pushing for research and development into better energy storage. One of the problems with solar and wind energy is that energy must essentially be used as soon as it's generated. We should also be cheering on America's fracking industry, which has redirected energy use from more carbon-intensive industries. That's the reason for America's carbon emission reduction over the past few years. We should be pushing for the use of nuclear energy and for research and development into how to make it cheaper. As Bjorn Lomborg, former director of the Danish government's Environmental Assessment Institute, writes, nuclear energy doesn't make carbon dioxide. Perhaps surprisingly, nuclear energy is also very safe. Then there's adaptation. This is where I'm going to end. First, we should be promoting capitalism, which increases living standards around the world, thus making people in poverty less vulnerable to the ravages.
Councilmember Rodriguez.
Time is up?
Yes.
Okay. Do you mind if I finish this paragraph?
How about the last sentence?
Okay. End of my comments. We must stop the ignorance surrounding these policies that will ultimately rob your children's future, making our great nation depend on countries like China. We must wake up before everything you know and love is taken from you in the name of climate change.
Thank you, Councilmember Rodriguez. Councilmember Weiss.
I have just a couple questions. When we had our briefing, I had indicated that I'd like to know if the San Diego CCA would be willing to forego the weighted vote. Did anyone find out if that's the case?
Yeah, thank you, Councilmember Weiss. Because the work has been done to establish the Joint Powers Agreement, there's a requirement for a supermajority of all of the membership of San Diego Community Power to make any amendment there too. And when we discussed with them, there was not support to make that change in the weighted voting system.
Okay, thank you. I also have another question. When you look at all of these climate action plans, and I'm just going to focus on San Diego County for the time being, with these targets of anywhere from 75 to 100% renewable, my concern is that currently the California total power mix is made up of about 24% of wind and solar. The balance comes from natural gas, coal, nuclear, and nuclear is going to be going away, and at least in California in 2024 and 2025 with the closure of Diablo Canyon. If everyone tried to hit their renewable target, at some point there's kind of a bait and switch where we're going to have to rely on non-renewables to continue to provide electricity, particularly in the evening hours. Is that not correct?
Yeah, Councilmember Weiss, I'd like to direct this question actually to our consultant, Gary Saliba. He might be able to speak to the energy market conditions in California right now. He has wide experience with CCAs and the energy market throughout the state.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Gary Saliba with EES, and we've been your CCA consultant now for 2 or 3 years, 4 years maybe, something like that. So we're well versed in the community and the things you're looking at. With respect to the power grid, you bring up a good point. There's roughly way over half that the power in California is generated with fossil fuel or nuclear, and they're shutting down the nuclear plant, as you mentioned, and the ones through cooling gas turbines are going to be shut down sometime fairly soon, and that leaves a pretty good size hole. There is enough. We did a study for the County of San Diego about a year ago on the potential for solar in California to meet your goals, and there's enough potential for solar to meet the demand during the day. The problem is, as you mentioned, at nighttime, something else has to happen. And right now, it looks like battery technology is going to have to fill the hole during when the wind's not blowing, when the sun's not shining. And getting that much battery storage in my candid opinion, is problematic. You've got 7 or 8 years to get it done. They're producing batteries quickly, but as noted earlier, there's problems with some of the raw inputs on the lithium-ion batteries. And I'm not sure where that's going to end up.
Okay, thank you. So essentially, regardless of the targets, there's going to need to be reliance through the ISO on out-of-state power generation. I mean, the electrons don't care where they're generated from. And so to keep the lights on, it's going to come more than likely from out-of-state, whether it's nuclear or natural gas or other sources at some point in time.
Yes, there's a big transmission line that goes from the northwest to the southwest. And that's not fully loaded. There could be a lot of hydropower come into California at nighttime, which is carbon-free, which I think that the administration and the politics of that haven't been worked out, but operationally it could be done. And Desert Southwest has a lot of the big thermal plants there where you can import from that side as well.
Okay, thank you. I have my own issues with joining the CCE. However, I see that the writing's on the wall, and at some point we are going to have to make a decision to advance that. So what I'd like to do is make a motion that in partnership with the North County cities of Vista, Escondido, and San Marcos, we collectively join the Clean Energy Alliance.
I'll second that motion. Deputy Mayor Keim.
Just have a couple questions for staff. I know we've heard lots of comments tonight about council waiting for 2 years. And, we gave clear direction in 2019 to partner with our North County cities. And there's a reason I mention that. As we move to clean energy with Oceanside, with one of the lowest median incomes in the county or the coastal cities, we have to protect our vulnerable residents from the cost of that transition. And, I'm hearing these 1 or 2% savings, but as all these CCEs clamor for that same limited amount of energy, the prices are going to go up. So we're going to have to do a CCE, but we have to be ready for the prices to go up. And it's incumbent upon us to protect our residents who are having a tough time already. I read something that hit home with me in Oceanside. And it said, we need to see the world through the eyes of people who accept that climate change is real, but must ceaselessly struggle to get by in the here and now. And that's the reason that I wanted to join with the North County cities. They have similar demographics, similar income. We are more alike than Del Mar, Carlsbad, and Solana Beach. And if we join at this time with just those three, we're going to be a minority vote, and we could have a JPA that goes in wildly different directions. And that's why it was very clear, I thought, that we wanted to partner with our North County cities. And I actually have a couple questions. One of the reasons that we're here today, I heard, is we need to do this by the end of the year to meet our cap for 75%.
The resolution.
Yeah, to clarify, Deputy Mayor Keim, it's not necessarily to meet our cap by the end of the year. It is based on the schedule to become a member of a community choice energy program. We would have to adopt a resolution that basically accepts the joint powers agreement. And then we would also have to adopt an ordinance, which is required by state law, that we would be joining a CCE.
I guess my point is to make our 75% by 2030, we need to get into a CCE, correct?
So that's correct. So the way that the state's renewable portfolio standard target works out, which is what SDG&E is held to, they have to meet a 60% renewable energy mix by 2030. If we relied on that, we would still be well below our target of 75%. So the CCE is a tool, a very powerful tool that helps increase the renewable load in the city.
Okay. So I want to make sure I saw this correct in the presentation. The other 78 corridor cities, they have higher green energy or for the caps than we do, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
So if they're behind us and we have to do this now, but they don't, are they not going to meet are they all going to violate the terms of their cap?
I wouldn't say they're violating the terms of their cap, but it depends on the progress towards increasing the share of renewable energy through, in this case, if it was, say, for example, Clean Energy Alliance, they have a goal to increase the share of renewable power going all the way to 100% by 2035. That progress would help all of the cities achieve their listed goals and their individual caps.
Okay. It seems like they want to make sure to get it right, as do I. I would have been happy to join the CEA with them earlier this year or last year. And, I think that was the direction. So I guess that's something that's frustrating to me is there were clear reasons why we wanted to partner with those cities. I don't know what work staff has done to effectuate that, but we got these recommendations for this, and it seems like those, that unanimous council direction was somehow, we went a different direction, and I don't know why that is. But I'm also going to support Councilmember Weiss's motion to join the CEA with 78 corridor cities. Thank you.
City Manager, Ms. Lorson? Oh, I'm sorry.
Deputy
Ms.
Mayor
Dale.
Keim, let me just clarify. We did not bring an action forward until 2021 because the feasibility study with the cities that we were asked to collaborate with wasn't done until this spring. I just wanted to clarify that with your statement.
No, I understand that. It's not that I'm in a hurry. I was saying that I'd be happy to have done it earlier. My point is, why are we out ahead of Vista, San Marcos, and Escondido and making this recommendation instead of doing this together and putting in that work ahead of time? And we would be much more powerful with all four cities going together, and we would have a much more influential voice in that JPA. Because if you see what happens in JPAs, with Sandag, the most I can do when they want to do 5 big moves with $177 billion is write a letter. And I don't want to put us in that position again. So I think it's advantageous for us to be with the corridor cities. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. And I wanted to add that we still would be most in number for the CEA. So we'd still have voices. We'd still be like a majority. But I think if we're all basically,
it's a weighted vote. It's a non-weighted vote, so we would have
weighted.
1 of 4. So we have 25%. So easily we have 3 cities.
Of 7, yeah.
Or if we joined with and we kept it at just 4, we'd have 3 cities, which much higher median income and much different long-term goals than we have able to completely dictate the direction of the JPA.
Okay, there still would be the 4, if you're looking for equal. For cities that have, say, working families, you have Oceanside, Vista, San Marcos and Escondido.
I agree, Mayor. That's my point. Is
Okay.
that's why it's important to bring
Got
those
it.
cities along with us.
Thank you. Councilmember Jensen.
Yes. Do we have any type of commitment from the corridor cities?
So my sense is that they're waiting for us to be the leader in doing this, moving in this direction. From the conversation I've had at the mayor's level, I have had some conversations with council members, but that seems to be where we're moving. We started earlier, so we're in the first in this position. Yes, Solana Beach began this whole process early, did their own, and that's why they have this superior kind of knowledge that they then went in with Carlsbad and Del Mar, and I have to say this, I got to listen to some of the folks that they have that are on board with this, and they are some of the experts in the state, the best experts in the state. So a lot of the sense of, and there were some concerns about sustainability. Having listened to the presentation, I felt very comfortable that we are in the hands of experts. If we were to do this on our own or to start again, it would cost a lot to get that expertise. And what was pointed out to me at the time was that having 3 in a region may not be, one may not be able to survive. So that was a concern that was put out there. And so if we have 2, we have the competition. We are also, acting in light of what has been said and the resources that are limited. Certainly, I'd want to be, in a position to be getting those contracts. And also addressing the exit fees, because someone's going to be holding the bag, the bigger size bag at the very, very end. So.
Okay.
There were a lot of things that the list that in the letter from Mayor Hall, these were the main points. There were a lot of other points that were made.
Okay. And Peter, was your motion contingent on the corridor cities? So.
Yes, in partnership with the other cities.
It's a hybrid. I think that's where we're going. And if we could do this, I'll do resolutions, or most of us do resolutions by December, that 50,000 would be split. I was also advised that the board could waive that requirement too. Right? Yes. Yes. And do you have any other questions, Councilmember Jensen?
No, that was it.
Thank you. And Councilmember Rodriguez, your time is up. Do you have a quick question?
Yeah, with what Councilmember Jensen brought forward. So the entire agreement of moving forward on the CCE is contingent upon those cities joining. So if one of those cities don't join, we don't move forward on the CCE. I want to make sure that that's clear.
That's where we're heading, and that's the hybrid model that I recommended. Ms. Lorson.
Mayor and council members, I just want to point out that we will have to come back to council with that resolution and that ordinance. So I would presume we wouldn't recommend, nor would you approve that unless the other cities had made similar commitments. So the decision today, there's still more steps to come to ensure that they are all on board.
Right, and I believe that, as I said, they're all moving in this direction, so this puts more pressure, hopefully, on, say, cities of Carlsbad, Del Mar, and Solana Beach to help us get along and get to that line. Okay, no other requests to speak. Let's vote.
Motion approved, 5-0.
Do we have any items, requests to speak on items not on the agenda?
We do not have any requests to speak on items not on the
Okay, so the next regularly scheduled meeting is 3:30 on Wednesday, October 6th. This meeting is adjourned.